A Scituate vacation home that's now been damaged at least 10 times by storms is getting yet another infusion of federal money to raise it up. This is the second time the home has been elevated in a dozen years. The latest cost, $180,000 of federal grant money. Joining me now are Beth, Daley, senior investigative reporter for the New England Center for Investigative Reporting, which is a media partner of GBH. She's been reporting this for a long time and wrote the story in today's Globe. Jack Clarke is director of public policy and government relations at Mass Audubon. Great to see you both. I mentioned the latest, Beth, is 180 grand. It's not the only time. How much money, federal money, has been poured into the owners of this house's pockets?
Yeah, and actually, Daley, we don't actually know, but I've sort of tabulated it's probably over $1 million. $1
million. $1 million. And my understanding is some of that's federal grant money, some of that's federal flood insurance, right? But federal flood insurance essentially is funded by us, no?
Yeah, exactly. After Hurricane Katrina, it's been on the taxpayers' backs, and now the program is $24-something billion in debt, and we're basically paying for it.
How much is the house worth?
About $1.2 million.
And it's gotten $1 million in federal funds, give or take, a couple of bucks. You're quoted in Beth's story today, Jack, saying it's a threat to public dollars, threat to environment, a threat to public safety. I understand the first two. How is it a threat to public safety?
It's a threat to public safety because, first of all, there are people, Jim, that live in those houses that are in very vulnerable, dangerous situations, especially during storms. These beaches are moving under the houses, and there's no way they're going to be able to save the house in the long term.
Yeah, but they're grown-ups. If they know they're at risks and they're willing to continue at risk, why is that our business?
Well, it's our business because when there's a storm, the first responders go in and they also put themselves at risk when they have to save people and save property.
You know, we don't have a representative who is on the other side of this thing. Either Beth plays it down the middle, but your team spoke to Keith Dobie, who's owned his home in Scituate for decades, had to move it back after damage from the blizzard of '78. He's a supporter of efforts to keep all these homes safe. Here he is.
You hear that, well, the seawall in front of that house, we're paying a lot to protect that one house. You're not paying a lot to protect that one house. You're paying to protect that house. And I don't know how far back, but when the water comes through the seawall as it did and floods that whole neighborhood, there have been numbers tossed around on the television of $1 billion in damage, you know, not just one house.
So Jack, he's saying it's not, you heard him, it's not just for me, it's for the people behind me and behind me. Is there any merit to that argument?
Well, you know, the situation of living on a barrier beach, it's highly dynamic, it's moving, it's the front line against sea level rise, big storms, and warmer oceans, which is a recipe for disaster for those that live in these areas.
Does anybody in Washington ever say that by providing all this money, it's 100% reimbursement, isn't it?
Now it is, yeah.
Okay, 100%. Did they not say we're creating an incentive for homeowners never to deal with this problem? Just let the flood come, we'll pay to fix it, let the flood come, isn't that essentially what this program is?
It's actually really interesting. They are, but they're saying we're going to raise it because actually science shows the more times you raise a house and elevate it, it will be saved from the ocean. But there's a wrench in all that now. It's called climate change, right? Sea levels are rising. You have more severe storms. That's documented right now. And as a result, elevating the house is not going to work in the long run anymore, and that's where we're at.
Well, virtually everybody acknowledged you except the hardest core that ultimately the sea is going to win this, yes? Whether it's a year or 10 years. I mean, virtually everybody says that's the end game here.
Yeah, I think that's...
You know, I read recently, Jack, and I know you spend a little time doing legislative work too. Didn't I read that people on Beacon Hill a year or so ago created a fund for voluntary buyback of these houses, which seems to me is the win-win situation. The homeowner comes out close to whole, and people like you who have all these concerns have those met with. What happened to that?
It's interesting, Jim, because that bill was originally filed by Senator Nick Costello from Amesbury in 1978. It's been resurrected. The legislature passed a $2 billion environmental bond, and there's $20 million in there to start buying out.
So why aren't they buying out people? Why aren't they offering this money to people like the homeowner here?
Well, the administration has to establish the program. It's in the bond, so the money's there, but the Baker administration has to set the program up. And there's legislation on Beacon Hill to make that happen.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that, is that the fact that homes in Massachusetts are really expensive, right? So like $1 million in Mississippi is not going to get you what $1 million is going to get you one house in Massachusetts.
Yeah, but 6% of that fund will buy the house that you've been writing about, right?
But you know how many homes there are in Massachusetts? 574 homes like that.
But they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Is there a sense, I mean, is there, very quickly on 50, is there any sense of urgency around this? Or is the notion that the money's just going to be there despite federal deficits and all this, and despite climate change, let's keep letting it go?
I don't see any sense of urgency. But
There was in 2012 when the Congress tried to take the $24 billion debt of the flood insurance program and make it more equitable by people paying their fair share. And after Congress passed it, the telephone lines got flooded, even by the Massachusetts delegation.
End of that
Senator Warren,
reform.
they reversed everything, and we remain in a $24 billion debt for the taxpayers in the
On
United
that
States.
note, excellent reporting, Beth. As
Great.
always,
Thanks for
great
having
to
me.
see you.
Appreciate it.
Jack, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.